Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Really excited to see everyone back again. Onward with our Linux journey, and we're going to continue that journey with today's video, and it's going to be all about pattern matching. Now, before we get into pattern matching, remember, we always build on concepts and ideas that we've learned from the past. So if this is the first time you ran into this video and you haven't built that foundation by watching the other videos, more often than not, you're gonna get lost and it's gonna be very hard to understand if you've never heard some of these things before. I would encourage you to go check out the description, as we always keep it updated. You'll find all the information there in order to catch up to where we are today. And specifically, I'll put in playlists for the RHCSA. And of course, as time goes on and we update things, we'll keep the description updated so that way you can see all the latest and greatest. Now, one last thing before we jump into pattern matching today, make sure you go ahead and give me a like for the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so that way you're notified whenever we upload videos to the channel. Because remember, we talk all things engineering, tech, and finances. And lastly, share the video with a family member or a friend, as you can kickstart their career in tech or possibly refine it if they're in tech. So let's jump into pattern matching. And by the way, as you learn pattern matching today, I'll show you 3 ways in which you can utilize different techniques in order to work with files and directories much faster. So let's jump into it. Hey everyone, welcome to my desktop. And as you see here, we have RHEL 8. And in today's video, we're going to talk all about pattern matching and how pattern matching can help you be efficient in the terminal. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the things that we're going to be doing is going to be building off of ideas and concepts that we've done in the past. So if you haven't seen any of our other videos in the RHCSA playlist, go ahead and check that out. Make sure you always look at the description, as it will give you all the information that you need in order to be up to date. Because if you're not up to date, it's very easy to get lost. And we don't want you to be lost. We want you to learn and, of course, apply the knowledge. That way you can get your career in tech started, or refined if you're already in tech. So without further ado, let's start talking about pattern matching and how we can utilize that in order to make our work a little bit more efficient in the terminal. So again, let's head over to activities and let's go and launch our terminal. Let's go ahead and increase the font. All right, so that should be good enough in order to see what we have going on here. So let's take a look at what's inside our home directory. Now, as you see here, there's a couple of files and directories that we have up. So for this video, let's go ahead and create a couple of examples. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's create a directory. So let's use the make dir command, and we learned that in the past. And let's create the directory pattern matching. Let's do an ls, and we see pattern matching right over here. So let's go inside of the pattern matching directory using the cd command. And of course, we have an empty directory. Now let's go ahead and create some files for this example using the touch command. And we'll be utilizing shell expansion, which is what you learned in the previous video, in order to create multiple files very quickly. So utilize the information you learned previously in order to work quickly. And in this case, we're going to go to activities, and we're going to launch files in order to see what we're doing in real time. Yes, we're going to be working with the terminal, but you can actually see the files created right in the GUI, which is pretty cool. So let's head into our pattern matching directory. In the GUI, of course, it tells us the folder's empty. Now let's head back to the terminal, and let's use the touch command, and we're going to name the file Acosta ETF. We're going to open the brackets 1 through 100, close the brackets, and we're going to give it an extension of .txt. But we already know that everything in Linux is a file, so the extension doesn't really matter. This is just for our purposes so we can see that. So of course, when we hit enter, that creates all the files. So let's do an ls to see that. And there you go. You have files 1 through 100. And of course, you can also see it in the GUI side. So here we are in our pattern matching directory, where you can see Acosta ETF 1 all the way through 100, which is also here. Excellent. Now let's create some additional files in order to showcase some of these pattern matching examples. So we have our text file. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the touch command, and I'm going to say word doc open brackets 1 through 100 .odt. And for those who don't know what ODT is open document format. And we utilize that format a lot in some of these open source tools, such as LibreOffice as an example. So let's go ahead and hit enter on that. Let's do an ls. And as you can see here, we have a lot of files to work with. Same thing if I were to go into our GUI, you can see that there are all the Word docs. We have 200 files in total. So let's do an ls pipe wc space -l. And don't worry about the command just for now, because that command will teach you what all that means at a later time. But just as you can see here, you have 200 files. And that makes sense because we created 100 Word docs using the open document format. And we've also created 100 text files. So let's go ahead and clear our screen. And we do that using the clear command. So let's go ahead and hit clear. So now that we have our environment ready, let's go ahead and tackle what pattern matching is. So pattern matching is a technique that allows us to specify a set of files based on a specific pattern rather than specifying the files individually. So this can help you save a lot of time when you're working with files or whether you're searching for files. I mean, the list goes on what you can do with this. So let's go through a couple of examples so that way we can understand what I'm saying, right? It's always great to hear a definition, but what the heck does it mean in real life? Let's go ahead and practice it. So the first thing in pattern matching that I'm going to teach you is how to use the wildcard. So let's say, as an example, we know that we have 100 text files, and we also know that we have 100 document files, or the open document format. So let's say I'm in this directory and I want to search for just the text files in the directory. I don't really want the open document format. So what we can do is we can do ls in order to list the contents of the directory. And I'm going to go ahead and use the wildcard, which is a star, and I'm going to finish it with .txt. So what does that mean? That means, hey, show me the contents inside of the directory using the ls command. The wildcard for pattern matching, in our case here, you have the star. That means match any characters. It doesn't matter what it is. Match any characters. You also have to consider that it must end in a .txt. That's what that whole command means. So you're basically going to get every single file that is ending with a .txt. And if we hit enter, you can see here that it shows us all the .txts. So that's Acosta ETF 1 through 100. Really cool. So now let's do the same example now, except we want to search for the open document format. And remember, that was the .odt. So let's go ahead and do ls. Star means match any characters. And we're going to do .odt and hit enter on that. It shows us all the files starting from Word Doc 1 all the way to Word Doc 100, but specifically only the files that have the .odt extension. So let's play around with this command a little bit more. Let's say I want to list any character, but this time I want the number 8 in between any character, and then I want any character after that, and let's see what we get. And in this case, we should get both Word doc and we should also get the text file. And as you see here, which is pretty cool, you have any character, which is Acosta ETF 1, followed by an 8, which is what we put in the command here, followed by any character afterwards, which is the .txt. Remember, I put any characters on both sides, so meaning that I should also see the .odt files as well. And of course, you see that here as well. So Word doc 3 for any characters, that's this part. Then you have the 8, which is this part right over here, the 8. And then you have finish it off with any characters after that, which is a .odt. So pretty cool how you can use the wildcard in order to look for files very quickly. So we just learned how to use the star in order to utilize wildcard pattern matching. Now there's another character that you can use in order to help you out in pattern matching, and that's the question mark. The question mark is another good tool to use in order to do pattern matching with files and directories. And let's take a look at some examples of what you can use with the question mark for pattern matching. So in our particular case, let's do an ls to show us the contents. Now I know that we have files, specifically text files that start with Acosta ETF. So let's go ahead and put Acosta ETF on there. Now let's say I don't remember what number I'm looking for within those files. Remember, we did do 1 through 100, but let's say I'm looking for a text file that has 2 numbers in there and I don't remember what I have. You can use the question mark, let's say 2 question marks, in order to see what numbers that I have with 2 characters. And I'll close it out with .txt because I remember it was a .txt extension. So let's see what we get as far as that return. So as you see here, it actually lists all the Acosta ETF text files that have 2 numbers in them, right? Because we have 2 question marks. Now keep in mind, this also keeps out the Acosta ETF files that have 1 number or 3 numbers because we didn't put 1 question mark or 3 question marks. So remember, 1 through 9 has 1 character and 100 has 3 characters. So let's do those examples real quickly. Let's do the 1 question mark so that way you can see Acosta ETF 1 through 9. So there you go. Now let's go ahead and do Acosta ETF 3 question marks so that way you can see Acosta ETF 100.txt. And there you go. Hey guys, quick pause. Hopefully you're enjoying the content. If you are enjoying the content and you find that it provides value, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out when we upload to the channel. Make sure to give me a like for the video as it helps the channel grow. Share the video with a family member or friend so that way they can learn all about engineering, tech, and finances. Also, leave me a comment. Do you guys have any questions on what you learned so far? I would love to hear from you. So let's head back to the content. Now, the question mark is a good tool to use if you remember some of the characters and you're a little fuzzy on some of the other ones. You can utilize that in order to help you work with files a little bit faster so you don't have to remember the exact name of a file or directory. All right, excellent. Up until this point, you just learned how to use the question mark and also as well the star in order to do pattern matching. Now let's actually use those examples in order to do useful work instead of just listing files. Now, one of the things that is common that people do is move files from one directory to another. So in this particular case, if we do a PWD for print working directory, we see that we are in the pattern matching directory. And in the pattern matching directory, when we do an ls, you see all the files that we've created, which is the text files and the open document format. And let's say that we're interested in moving Acosta ETF text files, specifically 1 through 9, into another directory. And of course, you can use pattern matching in order to do that. Let's create a new directory here using the make dir command, and we can call it files. And as you see, there is a directory, files. Now let's go ahead and move. So you can do mv for move, and we can move files Acosta ETF 1 all the way through 9, and specifically the .txt extension into that new directory called files. Now there's multiple ways to do this, and it's interesting because sometimes I see folks do each file individually. They can say Acosta ETF1.txt, they can do Acosta ETF2.txt, and so on and so forth, right? You can name all the files, and then once you're done naming the files, you can then use the destination, which is the files directory. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you see here, there's 3 parts, right? So there's the command itself, which is move. There's the actual files that you want to target, which is Acosta ETF 1 and 2. And then lastly, it's followed by the destination of where it's going, which is the files directory. So let's go ahead and run that command. If we list the contents of what's inside of the files directory, you can see that Acosta ETF 1.txt and Acosta ETF2.txt was moved into the directory. Now, of course, we talked before that we wanted to move 1 through 9. So this is a bit cumbersome, and this is where pattern matching can help us. Remember, let's use the move command. We can call it Acosta ETF, and I'm going to use the question mark in order to match the one single character, and I'm going to follow it up with a .txt, and I'm going to say move it to the files directory. And if we run this command and it completed successfully, and if we do an ls on files, we can see that Acosta ETF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 was moved over successfully into the files directory using the question mark for pattern matching that we just learned. Now, of course, we already moved files 1 and 2 prior, so it just carried over 3 through 9. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't use the star instead of the question mark, well, if we did the star, it would have said, hey, match any characters. The question mark said just match one character for one question mark. If we would have done the star, it would have said match any character. So that would have grabbed Acosta ETF all the way from 1 to 100, and that is not the behavior that we wanted. So as an example, let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to move everything out of files using our star. And remember, utilizing the star means that I am going to capture any file within the files directory because I used the wildcard for pattern matching. And I'm going to say that I want to leave it in the exact same directory which I'm in now. I'm in the pattern matching directory. So let's run that. So let's take a look at what we have have for Acosta ETF, and we're going to use a star in order to match any pattern after Acosta ETF. And you see that we have Acosta ETF 1, which is right over here, all the way to 100, which is what we had before. And we can also double check the files directory to make sure that it's empty. And of course, the files directory is empty. So now let's take a look at that last example. I'm going to use the move command. I'm going to say Acosta ETF, and I'm going to give it the star this time instead of the one character, which I'm interested. This is saying match any character, and I'm going to go with .txt, and we're going to put that in the files directory. Now keep in mind, the behavior that we want is just keeping Acosta ETF 1 through 9.txt in the files directory. I don't really want all the other files, but this goes to show you that the star wildcard means I'm going to match any characters. So let's go ahead and hit enter on that, and we should see Acosta ETF 1 through 100 .txt in the files directory. So let's go take a look at the files directory. And there you have it. You have Acosta ETF 1 all the way through 100 .txt, because we used the star as a wildcard for pattern matching, as opposed to using the question mark, which was just saying, hey, I'm just interested in one character, which is 1 through 9. So pretty interesting on how that works. So let's move all the files now back to pattern matching. So we're going to use the mv command. We're going to go into the files directory, and we're going to use every single file in there by using the star. And we're going to move that into our current directory, which is // And as you see here, we have all of our files. And of course, the files directory is empty. And by the way, as we're going and we're learning through all this stuff, keep in mind that the GUI is up in the background. But the GUI is really just meant for you to see the files move around, and you can actually see what's happening when you type commands. But of course, it's absolutely not necessary. I just have it in the background in order for you guys to see what's actually happening. All right, excellent. So at this point, you learned what pattern matching is utilizing the star and also as well the question mark. And you also learn how to work with files using that pattern matching technique. The next thing I want to start talking about is range notation. So what is range notation, and how can you utilize that in order to make your work simple as possible? So range notation is pretty much what you think it is. It's specifying a range that you want to work with. So in this particular case, let's say I'm interested in working with the open document format. So we're going to do an ls, and we are interested in Word doc. Let's open our bracket. We're going to do 1-4 through 9. We're going to close our bracket, and let's finish it off with our .odt for our extension of open document format. And let's hit enter on that and see what we get. So as you can see, we have Word doc 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way right? 1 through 9. Now, same thing with listing the files, we can also work with them. So one of the things that we can do is we can reuse our command previously, and we can change the ls to a move, and we can move Word documents 1 through 9 to our files directory. So let's go ahead and run this command and see what we get. So the command completed successfully. So now we should do an ls on our files directory. And we see here that Word doc 1 all the way through 9 was moved to our files directory, which is really cool because you can use range notation in order to make working with files and directory a lot easier. So another really cool example of pattern matching.
All right, folks, welcome back. By now, you have all the information that you need to know in order to master pattern matching. And as you saw, there was multiple ways in which we can do it, utilizing the wildcard, utilizing the question mark, and utilizing range notation in order to make working with files and directories that much faster and more efficient. Now, this goes without saying, make sure you practice what you learned today. Since you are new to this topic, it does seem a little bit difficult because it's the first time you're hearing about it. But with a couple of reps under your belt, you'll master pattern matching in no time. So again, as always, folks, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so that way you are notified whenever we upload new content to the channel. Make sure you go ahead and give a like for the video if it helped you out. And as always, share it with a family member or a friend so that way they can learn all things about engineering, tech, and finances. And of course, specifically with this video, they can continue their Linux journey. So stay tuned as we see each other on the next video.